Let's show you what it takes to enter your first job into the GDS version 15 WinBidPro software. Assuming you've already watched some of the other videos like the overview and some things to do before you create your job, this is the next thing you'd want to look at. Let's go ahead and double click on our icon here, and the first thing will come up is the login window. Remember, you can enter your name easily by clicking Edit Add. Guest will work, but it's always nice to have your own name. And it takes a little bit longer the first time to start it up. There's another video about the personalizing the startup of the program. And if you haven't watched that, that's a good one to check out. What that means is I've set my program so that it automatically opens the vendor that I last used and also the last job I was in. So that way it just opens right up to where I was when I exited the program last. So that's what it just did here. And remember, there's other videos that are going to cover all the specifics of the program, all the different tabs, menu options, reports, all these different things. But this is what you'd want to know for your first job. So we're using the TubeLight catalog here, and all I need to do is go click on Jobs, and then I'm going to click Add New, and this is where you enter the name of your job. So I'll just enter anything, and notice this choose an optimizer selection here. Better yield means you're going to get the best possible yield of materials, so the least amount of scrap. And easier cut, easy cut means it's going to group the cuts together by longest to shortest, and it'll try and group the same size cuts in order. So first long, then short, and it gives you a little more, easier work when you're operating a saw manually. Where the better yield, it's ideal for automated stops because the cuts will be mixed up more. The lengths of the cuts will be mixed up. So let's click OK there. Now the next thing, after we put the name in for the job, it needs to have an elevation. So our first elevation, you can name that whatever you want. A lot of times people are used to the old software, our old software, where it has a letter for the elevation, and you can just add a letter to the beginning of the name if you like. So this can be anything, just standard numerical alphabetic characters here. So now after we name the job, we click Select Frame, and this is where your list of framing systems comes up for the vendor. So this is their entire list that's been entered, and there's separate videos on this, but as I mentioned in some of the earlier videos, you want to become familiar with a system before you use it in a job. So like let's say I click this number 9 system. It's an E14000 storefront shear block. It's a 2-inch profile with 1-inch glass. So you want to know what parts it's using and what settings it has before you start entering your job. So that way you don't have to go back and fix things midstream or after your job's entered. So it's a lot better to know what you're getting into when you start your job. So we do that. We can actually pick the color here, although we can change that in the optimizer itself. Along with that optimization method that we picked when we named the job, you can select that in the optimizer also. So none of those things are set in stone at this point. So now it's waiting for us to enter the elevation measurements. And first thing is the quantity. So if you have 5 that are exactly the same, you would change the quantity to 5. Otherwise, if each elevation is unique in its size and shape, then you'd want to leave it at 1. We can enter the number of panels, let's say 5. Let's say it's 185 and 3/16 inches wide. You can do inches, feet, fractions, or decimals here. So if you do feet, just use the apostrophe for foot marks, and it'll default to inches for anything after the foot mark. And then we can enter, let's say 120.25. So it converts it to decimal. So what the program does is it makes it 5 equal panels. This is your basic elevation shape, and you'll notice all the panels are equal. You've got 4 horizontals and 2 wall jambs. I'm sorry, 4 verticals, 2 wall jambs. And so at this point we need to start adding things to the drawing, whether it's unequal panels, horizontals, doors, anything like that. And it's nice to go in order of our tabs at the bottom here. So if it needs doors, let's go ahead and click on the Doors tab, add that. Let's say there's a pair of doors in panel 3. I can either click Entrance, which puts a door and door frame all at once, or I can do a door frame separately. And if I click up here, and type the word pair, it's going to show me only the paired entrances. And it's with a transom butt hung, so let's go ahead and pick that. And now when I click door leaves, it'll show me only pair door leaves. Now this is where I can click medium, narrow, or wide. Let's say I just want medium pair with a panic. Let's say I want this one with 1-inch glass. And then I want to click show doors, and that adds those to it. Now remember there's separate videos that cover the door frames and the doors and entrances, so you want to get familiar with those because there's parts and settings just like there are for framing systems in each of those options. But you can edit the door and door frame for each opening right here in this little window, so by clicking these. Same thing for deleting. So now let's go ahead and say we want to add horizontals. We click the horizontal tab at the bottom, and all we have to do is type the height, hit tab and enter, and then it adds them in for us. So there's other settings here, and there's going to be a different video for horizontals, but this is the quick and easy way. Type the height, hit tab and hit enter, and it draws them in at the 84. So the next step would be glass. If we go to glass, there's going to be separate videos on the glass as well. Let's say it's a 1-inch system. You would have to know what type of glass needs to go in your elevation. Let's say tempered. You can add it by row or by light or by elevation. So let's say it's by light now for the doors. It already put one in the transom glass. I'm going to put it right here next to the doors. Now we can go to annealed, and I can go ahead and click these openings for these pieces of glass. So everything that has a letter in it is assigned glass, so that means we've assigned all our glass. Those letters remain when you go back to your layout tab too. And so the next step would be, let's say you add more elevations. You can just click here, type in the new name of the elevation. It picks up the system that you were using in the previous elevation. And one trick is, if you've made any changes to that framing system by clicking this button down here, the Edit Ele Frame System, you can actually change part numbers, settings, any of that stuff. If you've made those changes, they will be picked up by this next new framing system. Unless you click Select Frame and go back and pick the original system, then it won't pick up the changes that you had in your previous elevation. So there's a little trick to doing that, but it's a powerful tool once you get used to how it works. You can also go to elevations and add new, and you can also go to here and say new elevation. So there's 3 different ways to add new elevations. Now once you've done that, let's say your job's complete, we go to the optimizer, and again there's going to be a separate video for the optimizer and how it works, or there are, so go check those out. First thing you need to do is get the elevation parts. So that gathers all the cut pieces for the job, for each elevation in the job, and it shows you here what the cut pieces are. The next thing it needs to do is optimize them with stock length material. So it figures out the number of stock lengths and the cut patterns for each stock length. And then we can print that. When you see the preview of the printout, it shows you the stock length number and the number of cuts for that part. So you've got your part number, and this one has 2 stock lengths, 1 and 2, and each one is cut a certain way. So each box is the cut length for that stock length cut. So you could print that, give it to your fabricator, and he could go to work on that job. So now this is basically the gist of it. There's other reports you can print, the final parts report. So there's other videos that will cover that, and you can print your drawings. You can do all the different settings, and you can add the details, print your shop drawings, and all that. So keep all that in mind. There's separate videos, but this is the basics for entering your first job, and be sure to watch some other videos. Thanks.